Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. Taxes is something which everyone grudges to pay. And for many years, one of the main reasons why people took interest in the union budget was to see whether the taxes were reduced, especially the personal income tax. A debate has now once again begun many years after the idea was discussed and abandoned about abolishing personal income tax and also the sales tax and excise. The BJP, which is preparing its vision document for the 2014 elections, is apparently discussing such a proposal, which was hinted by its Prime Ministerial candidate Narendra Modi yesterday. Earlier, its former National President Nitin Gadkari had openly discussed such a proposal. Incidentally, the 2014 budget had indicated a revenue of rupees 2.47 lakh crore from personal income tax alone, which form about 20% of the total revenues of the Government of India. Today we will discuss whether abolishing these taxes is a viable proposal or is it just an election time gimmick. What would be the impact of abolishing it and have in its place, as being discussed, only an expenditure tax or transaction tax? To discuss this, I have with me Mohan Guruswamy, visiting fellow at the Observer Research Foundation and a distinguished economist. Sheshadri Chari, BJP leader, will be has joined us, and Shantanu Guha, senior business journalist. Welcome to all of you. Mohan, I would like to come to you first. This is a thing which is actually something which everybody would love to hear, that something income tax is abolished. But is this the first time such a proposal is being discussed?
This is the first time certainly I've heard of such a proposal in India, because the notion of progressive income tax has been entrenched into our minds because of the issues of equity and the issues of social justice, all that involved in this. That is, actually you're paying taxes to repay the society which gave you that opportunity to earn the income. That is the grand notion behind this progressive taxation system which we have in India. Now, this is the first time I'm hearing. The only country which they're talking about which doesn't have taxes, because this is not just income tax and service tax.
No, they're not talking of service. They're talking of income tax, excise, and sales tax.
And service tax.
Okay.
I got it here. And service tax. So you have a tax-free regime,
like
you have in Dubai. So if you're looking for a model, then you only got Dubai, because there's no other country, economy, which follows that. And the origins of Dubai rests on exporting gold to India, which is actually smuggled in. So that is the origins of Dubai, and there's a resurgence in Dubai now because of renewed interest in gold in India and the margin on it. Okay, so and other countries we don't have income tax. We have countries like a couple of countries in Africa, Uruguay, and a couple of countries like Eritrea and some other countries.
So no major country,
no major economy in the world has. The reality again is surprising that it comes from a group of people who constantly talk of making India superpower. Now, GDP doesn't make you a superpower. It is the amount of money a government has to impact on the lives of its people and the life of people outside, which is power. That is, so how much of money does the government have? So the tax-GDP ratio then becomes critical. Now, India, in spite of all that, has a very low tax-GDP ratio. Countries like Britain, for instance, have 40%.
We have about
17% total. Or the central government is 10% and rest is with the states. But China has 18% central government. So you have to have taxes, revenue, to make change in lives of people. So there's some part of their logic says we are highly overtaxed and we shouldn't be taxed so much. Tax-GDP ratio should come down, which is absolute nonsense. Having said that, they say that we will abolish all these taxes, which will amount to almost 5 lakh crores, 5.5 lakh crores.
And only personal income tax is about 2.5 lakh crores.
2.47, service tax is 1.8, and then there's customs and excise duty, almost 6 lakhs, 5.5 lakhs there. So you're talking of 10 lakhs.
Yes.
They're going to abolish everything. You're going to get, and they say that we will charge an expenditure tax, and this
or a transaction tax.
Or this Artha Kranti group, which is the mother lode of all this thinking, has said in its paper that only 20% of all transactions are through the bank.
Yes.
So that means 80% is avoided. And you already have some kind of an expenditure tax in India in the form of sales taxes.
Right.
Okay. Everybody has sales tax. So if the whole purpose of the exercise is to plug the leakage, you're not going to plug it this way.
Okay, let me get Sheshadri Chari in on this. Mr. Sheshadri Chari, this is an interesting concept. I'm sure it excites a lot of people to even think that a day may come when we don't have to pay income taxes. But is this proposal, do you think this proposal has sound foundations?
No, Mr. Nikam, let me correct certain anomalies in the first place.
Yes.
See, we are getting into this debate on the background of what Mr. Narendra Modi said.
Yes. And also Mr. Gadkari. Mr. Gadkari in the last couple of months has been more vocal about this than what Mr. Narendra Modi only hinted at major tax reforms. But Mr. Gadkari has spoken about abolishing the income tax.
See, Mr. Narendra Modi and Mr. Gadkari are only talking about abolition of taxes and all now. But in the last 9 years, or probably in the last two decades, every finance minister, it has been the dream of the finance minister to present a budget wherein he will be able to reduce the personal income tax and do away with the problems of attached with taxation.
Right.
So, I am not attaching so much importance to what just Mr. Narendra Modi or Mr. Gadkari is saying now. They have only brought this subject again to the discussion table.
Right.
But what is more important we should look at is that there has to be some sort of a rationalization in the tax structure. See, taxations are basically increasing the revenue of the government.
Absolutely.
And somebody was mentioning that from where will the government find money to look after the poor, look after the social sector.
Right.
Now, basically, see, we must also remember one thing. In this country, although we have reposed so much faith and honor on the government of the day, we expect the government to practically do everything for the society. Why should we do that? Number one. Number two, why should every finance minister think that every person who is earning a single rupee in this country is a thief? Why should we think in those terms? Why don't we have a trust, some sort of a trust and faith on the people? And if you rationalize the tax structure, today what is happening is an income tax payer, especially the TDS part of it.
Yes.
TDS, instead of being tax deducted at source, it has become TDS. TDS is TDS. Even though I earn profitably, I earn and I pay my tax is directly deducted from my salary. What I get is something 100 minus 30%. Even on that, I have to file a tax return, I have to do so many things, and then the company which is paying me has to do so many other things.
No, Mr. Chari, Mr. Chari, your concerns are well taken. All of us face these problems, but the question is it a sustainable thing to abolish income tax or not?
No, nobody. Please don't put words in my mouth. No, I am not saying abolition. I am not saying abolish income tax.
I am not saying, I am not putting words in your mouth. This is the question. I am saying this is the question which has been raised by the most senior leaders of your party, and I'll come back to you, Shantanu. The question is whether it is sustainable or not. The alternative, as Mohan was pointing out, was they will have this transaction tax, and incidentally, very interestingly, last month Gadkari was giving these figures that if you bring in expenditure or transaction, even if you charge 1 or 1.5% or 2%,
absolutely,
the revenue which they are talking about is something like 40 lakh crores. Are these in the element of reality?
Certainly not. Let us be very clear about one thing, that in income tax structure, the tax structure, when you're talking about income tax, that is the domain of center.
Right.
The other two taxes which Mr. Gadkari and as well as Mr. Modi has said,
sales tax
that you need the concurrence of state.
Absolutely.
So that makes it a very Herculean task.
No, so let us keep those two aside and only talk of the income tax.
Even if you're trying to abolish income tax, you will have to do it in various slabs. You just can't do it overnight. it is understandable that about 30 to 40 million people who pay income taxes, there is a small portion of that who actually pay the tax and let's just carry the
It
burden.
is said that about 65 to 70% of the taxes is paid by just 2% or 3%.
Either 2% or 3%. So somewhere I find it very, very unfeasible. And as Mohan rightly said, I mean, how will they implement it? That's the bigger question than what kind of structures they are looking at. Even in the bank transaction, when you realize that 80% of Indians actually do cash transaction, they don't go to banks. So where is the money coming from? There is
No, it's
obviously
not just the banks.
Yeah.
I don't know. More the expenditure tax, is it something they're talking about? It's not just linked to the banks. Anything we spend on is being taxed, which is already there, as you said earlier. Sales tax is there.
You see, the whole purpose of this exercise, if you go through that website of that group,
Yeah.
which is inspiring these people to think in these terms, they say that the root cause of corruption
Root cause of
is
corruption.
tax evasion.
Yes.
So, any case, sales tax, which is a direct tax, is evaded wholesale.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no shop in Delhi or anywhere in India will ask you, parchi chahiye, nahi chahiye. If you don't want a parchi, then you get 14%, 10% less.
Yes.
Okay, it's very clear.
Maybe we don't even get that concession.
But what these guys are now saying is, and they're not talking about reform of the tax system. They're talking of abolition
Yes.
of income tax, service tax, central excise, customs, everything. So, you're going to make in India a big super Dubai without any income.
No,
And-
the income
and
is
the- and the
40 lakh.
notion-
They're talking of 40 lakh crores.
No, he's talking about 800 lakh crores as transactions throughout the year.
Right.
Okay. If you take 2% out
Right.
of that, it becomes 16 lakh crores.
Yes.
Okay. 16 lakh crores. There is also question of central government, 16 lakh crores totally. But out of that, only 20% goes through tax through banks.
But I think they also talked about GST at that point of
GST.
time.
Yeah.
GST.
They're talking about GST.
I think that's one point.
But then-
They haven't clarified that.
Then there is an issue of central government to make transfers to state governments. Our system is a federal system. The central government has to collect money, then transfer some of that to the state government. They can't.
No, let us not get it more. Let us not get into the nitty-gritties of it. My question is the larger question. It sounds exciting when you read the proposal that you abolish all these things from one source.
This,
You get
this
all
is
this
like
money.
saying police force in the country has not been able to solve the crime problem, so let's abolish the police. Okay, everybody will walk around with a lathi and sort out things themselves.
Mr.
This is
Sheshadri,
absurd,
is
yeah.
that
No,
Mohan is
no, I don't-
simplifying. Mohan is simplifying this whole thing, but this will be the criticism.
No, I don't understand. Who is talking about abolition of tax? Did Mr. Modi talk about abolition of tax?
Mr. Gadkari spoke about it.
He did
He
not
did.
talk about. I am sorry
Mr.
to
Gadkari
say,
spoke
sir,
pretty openly
Yes,
about
he-
it.
Gadkari
Please,
spoke very
please.
openly.
About it, Sheshadri,
He
don't
is
feel
not
embarrassed
talking. He is not talking about abolition of tax. And if you are talking about some group sending around emails about abolition of tax, I am sorry, I am not answering queries raised by some groups.
No,
For that
Mr.
matter,
Chari,
there are so many
I
other
don't
groups
want
in
to-
this world.
Mr. Chari, I
I'm
don't
not
want
going
to
into those details.
Mr. Chari,
Please
I
tell
don't
me
want
one
to
thing.
embarrass you. I don't want to, I know this is still at the proposal stage, but the fact of the matter is that Mr. Nitin Gadkari, who is heading that vision document committee, has very openly spoken about it and also given the other figures also. So anyway, that is not the question.
Let me
My
tell
question,
you. Let
no,
me
Mr.
tell you.
Mr. I am not
Please.
questioning you on that.
No. Since you have
Mr. Chari,
mentioned
my
about the
question-
vision document, I am
No,
telling you.
Let me make it
As
easier
far
for
as
you.
as far as the economic issues are concerned,
Yes.
we are not claiming that we have got all the experts in the world in our committee. No,
Right. But-
this question is open to discussion.
That is why we are discussing it.
Tomorrow, if the collective wisdom of all the economists in this country says that you cannot abolish even a single tax, on the other hand, you have to impose another 50 kinds of tax, we would probably think and do that. But as of now, what we are saying is there has to be some rationalization of the tax system. And we have got one of
what
the best
exactly
tax
is that?
collecting
What is the
system. Let me tell you
rationalization?
that.
I mean, what exactly
Chari,
Let me tell you.
rationalization?
Rationalization.
10%.
No,
Only
rationalization.
10%.
One second, Mr. Chari, 1 second. Rationalization, when you're talking of rationalization, you're talking of reducing the rate of income tax. Is that one of the rationalization? Would it?
It's not the only. No. It's not the only thing. See, every finance minister has from 30,000 or 40,000. I don't know. Some of the experts on your panel might be correct.
Yes.
Correct me. it has gone up to 1,80,000.
Yes.
I mean, you may go up to 2 lakhs, you may go up to 2.5 lakhs or 3 lakhs.
Yes.
And these are all small things
Absolutely.
which will certainly go a long way. But even then, we have to bring in something like 90% of the population into the tax net in order to
90%?
increase the revenue.
90% of the population in the tax net
But at the same time,
is
at
a
the
fantasy
same time,
because
can we do
35
this?
because
Can
nearly
we do
30% are living below poverty line in this
to
country.
say
In this
that-
country,
to say
the poor
that-
doesn't pay income
Okay.
tax, and the rich get bulk of their incomes from dividends and capital gains.
Absolutely.
So
And the
isn't
people,
it? So
the people who
But
don't pay income tax, they
no,
pay
these are
indirect
all
taxes.
issues.
One second.
On excise.
Yes,
Yes,
we
yes,
have
yes, Mr. Chari.
We have to look at the tax structure, just as somebody was mentioning. It's about 2 or 3% of the people, or 20% of the people are operating the bank accounts. 80% of the transactions
Mr.
are done
Chari.
by cash.
No, Mr.
So
Chari,
can we increase the number
The
of
tax
people
base.
who operate through banks? Can we bring in more and more transactions through check and bank?
No,
Can we reduce the cash transactions?
We have heard about this. There has been several attempts, and in fact, it has resulted in the last several years. The tax base has gone up. All these things are being addressed. But my question to you, Mr. Chari, is that do you think that one of the issues, as Mohan was pointing out, and we have been reading also, one of the issues to because corruption is very high in these areas. So if we abolish income tax, one, corruption can be controlled, eliminated virtually, and this huge bureaucracy which to some extent is seen by many as self-perpetuating, this bureaucracy can also be eliminated, and thereby we will be able to save a whole lot of money also. You think that is an exciting prospect?
No, see, doing away with corruption is one part of it, but looking at abolition of income tax as the only tool to do away with corruption is being very naive, to put it very bluntly. So I don't think by abolishing income tax we can do away with corruption.
Right.
So I don't think so. But at the same time, what you mentioned now was about an administrative structure.
Yes.
See, in India, we still have an administrative structure which is amounting to which is spending about 10% of the total tax collected.
Right.
So with 10% of expenses, we are able to collect as much as 90% of the taxation.
Right.
So this is a good proportion, good ratio. So I
So
don't
there is
think
no
there is
need-
anything wrong with the mechanism.
So there is no need
what
for-
happens is the methodology of collection and the methodology of keeping the accounts is what is really terrifying. And in that, if you are able to give certain concessions, we will be able to bring in more people into the tax net.
I think I pay
Two things. I'll come to you,
I
Shantanu,
pay
sorry.
both personal income taxes and corporate income taxes. I see both as a very straightforward, simple system. It's all been reduced. The number of loopholes have been reduced. So, and the things which you can
Things have improved as far as the tax administration
it's become quite straightforward and simple. I don't see what more.
No, but it's very interesting what Mr. Chari says. Mr. Chari also says that the tax administration structure is pretty good. There is no need for any major changes as far as because he's talking of 10%. 10% of the we are spending to collect 90%.
He seems to be out of step with the majority of his party, or out of the loop here, because it very clearly says in the Pioneer, and you can't get anything more authoritative about the BJP than the Pioneer. It says here that the so-and-so leaders met and they said that service tax will be abolished also to woo the middle class. This is quite ironical because service tax was introduced in 1999.
Right.
Okay, by an NDA government.
Right.
It is 2 lakh crores today.
And you were sitting in the North Block
I
at that
was
time.
at the North Block at that time.
Yes.
So, and then says the abolition of income and service tax may figure prominently in the agenda of the BJP. And all these gentlemen have met at the residence of opposition leader L.K. Advani.
But it's very interesting.
Sushma Swaraj, Arun Jaitley, Rajnath Singh, Nitin Gadkari, former Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha, and senior leader Subramanian Swamy. So, either they all come out and deny it.
No, but it's very interesting, Shantanu.
But what
that
is the
you-
problem?
there is,
What is the problem? I mean, if a government introduced certain things at a certain stage, and then the government thought that this is the best system to be operated upon, and then finally we come to a conclusion after 10 years that this is not the correct system, If it,
No, that
if it is corrected, why should we be
absolutely
worried
your
about
point.
correction?
No, your point is well taken. Course correction is something which every country
you're
needs
collecting 2
to
lakh
adopt. There is no
crores,
doubt about
there's
it. But
nothing
the
wrong
question
about
is
it.
whether it's a viable course correction. Yes, Shantanu.
I think there are 2 points here. I think what Mr. Chari is trying to hint, but I would rather go with what Mohan is saying. I think the entire premise is based on the fact that income tax actually makes criminals out of us, and there is this theory that
It encourages dishonesty.
It encourages dishonesty and stuff like that. And there is also a theory which is there brewing in some parties these days that kind of non-corporate income tax is also kind of a hindrance to growth in the country. And if that is handled, there could be stimulation, there could be middle class growth and all of that.
Yes.
Having said that, my only problem is that feasible. There also has been a talk of that can we reduce the LPG, kerosene, all kind of subsidy,
Right.
1,50,000 crore and just bring it down to 50,000 and give that 50,000 crore to the poor
Right.
and kind of help them.
Yes.
This is
the theory.
That
This
is
is-
kind of
that
a
is-
theory.
that is the theory
That
which
is
is
on
being
the
advocated.
premise. Mr. Modi and probably Mohan would know better, but that is where they are
Apart from
discussing.
this, there are other things also on the annual.
Yes.
This
But before you go, your once upon a time boss, who was the former finance minister in the NDA government, he
Has
calls it
opposed it.
going back to Vedic times by abolishing these things.
But
He
sat
has
in the
said
same
it's
meeting-
going back like
sat in the same meeting 3
He
days
sat
ago.
in the same meeting,
So,
but he
he's
didn't-
changed his mind, obviously.
Yeah.
But, but the fact is there's a sub-agenda, subtext coming out on this. Abolition of 1,000 rupee notes, 500 rupee notes, 100 rupee notes. And this listing, which yesterday in Baba Ramdev's meeting,
Yes.
this listing was, corruption through cash will be stopped 100%.
Yes.
Black money will be either converted into white or will vanish completely.
That's
You know,
ridiculous.
unaccounted hidden huge cash is skyrocketing the prices of groceries.
Right.
Okay, all kinds of absurd things. You know.
I just want to know, I mean, are we
Kidnapping
looking-
for ransom will
is-
end because you can't take.
No,
there
we are
1,000
talking
rupee
of-
notes.
Okay, exactly. No, I mean,
So you-
if it's fine, no 1,000 rupees, that means that we're talking of note duplicacy, illegal notes coming across the border through
Fake-
Bangladesh,
fake
fake
currency-
notes and all
fake
of that.
currencies can be avoided.
Probably, are they looking at something like to exempt business income? Is that they are looking at?
No. This
No, I
original impulse
think let us
is a
be.
complete new
No, let us-
economic system. You know,
let us
going back
be-
to the pastoral age.
let me tell you,
where
it's like
most of
what-
the transactions will be in terms of barter.
Yes, Mr. Chari.
No, I mean, one can be as uncharitable to Modi and Gadkari as far as possible. You just pick out one email from some group
No,
and then
it's not
start
an email.
and attribute
It's
it,
not an email.
attribute
I
it,
am in
and
the pioneer.
attribute it. I'm sorry, attribute it to everybody in this country as far as BJP is concerned. But I'm sorry to say, just to say that we have to rationalize the tax structure and remove the anomalies is nothing preposterous.
That's also
That
nothing
is
new.
the language used.
Yeah,
I have no
And
problem
I
with it.
welcome-
Because Mr. Gadkari very clearly said, income
I
tax
welcome everybody.
and
I
customs
welcome
excise will be
everybody on
abolished.
this
Yes.
board to come out with their suggestions. You tell them that look, this is wrong and this is right. This
No,
can
but
be
my-
done this way.
okay.
It can be done that way.
No, Mr. Chari, that's encouraging debate on these kind of issues is perfectly a normal thing and the right thing to do during an election season.
Absolutely.
But my question is, so from what you are saying and from what we have heard from Mr. Yashwant Sinha and things like that, obviously there is a difference of opinion within the party also.
It's not the question of difference of opinion. There can be different opinions.
There
There are different opinions.
Yes.
Even one individual gives two opinions on two different occasions. You take this finance minister's speech in the last 6 months. He has said 6 different things on the same subject. What is wrong in this?
Shantanu?
No, I mean, I agree with what Mr. Chari is saying. I mean, there's one point, I think I've just wrote it down here. One of the theories which is doing the rounds, and Mohan, correct me if I'm wrong here, they're saying that the incomes will probably rise because due to zero income taxes and demand will increase. That means taxes from excise and customs will balloon.
Another very important thing they say is that since there will be no taxes, the people pay lesser tax, so the employment also
will grow, exactly. And people could employ more people.
more people at lesser salaries.
At lesser
since they don't
salaries.
have to pay that.
Exactly.
Mohan, this is a proposal. No, these are all to a common man. These proposals sound exciting. Let me make it clear. These sound exciting.
What if you have no taxes and you have this logic of a lot of disposable income?
Yes.
Think of what's going to do to inflation. Inflation is your biggest problem right now.
Right.
Which means that money supply will flood the market. The same number of tomatoes and potatoes will be chased by a lot more money. Okay, so you got to think of all these things. an economy, you cannot take one bit and say, I'm going to reform this. It's a complete, total system. You touch something, something else will happen. So you can't do these kind of drastic surgeries on it. You got to reform is a slow,
Yeah.
gentle.
I think at the end of the day,
I think
Girish,
yes.
the idea is to make a taxpayer more honest. And that's where any reform
Make
moves.
taxpayer more honest, get more revenues.
Get more revenue.
That's the whole
that
thing.
is the bottom
and,
line.
But another important thing in their proposal is that, reduce the bureaucracy. Isn't it something which this country has been talking about? There's been a lot of how to reduce
That's
the
a
bureaucracy.
question of that.
I think-
You need so many people to collect those taxes
Exactly.
when you don't have
I think-
taxes.
I think-
that is the premise they're talking
I
about.
think the bureaucracy, the number of people per thousand citizens, is still well under control. But the thing is the making them work, making them collect. Now, I was in Massachusetts as a student when a new governor came and he said 2 strikes and you're out. Basically, people were evading state income taxes there. Huge way. He said, we catch you once, we give you a warning. We catch you a second time, we fine you. Third time, we'll send you to jail. And revenues started increasing hugely. Today, we don't have a system where people are penalized quickly. You can evade your taxes and then lock up the whole system in litigation for 30, 40 years.
That's what's happening.
That's what's happening. So you actually incentivize tax evasion. If you don't evade taxes, you're not being
That's
rational and logical.
Mr.
So I think these kind of reforms we can talk about.
Mr.
But
Chari,
to abolish taxes because
is this the kind of reforms which should be talked about instead of saying that we will abolish this and excite the people's minds, which is something which cannot be sustained or even a viable option?
See, I'm again telling you, if you keep on talking about abolition of tax, you better get somebody else who has said all these things. Nobody is talking about abolition of tax. But let us also remember that something like 5.5 lakh crore taxation disputes are pending still in this country.
Yes.
Look at the amount of all these things. This is all happens because when I'm going to deduct a tax or when I'm going to do some expenditure, first thing that comes to my mind is it allowed? Is it deductible? Why should I be given all those options at all in the first place? All that we have to do is simplify the definition of income.
Okay.
You go about going in this manner, but all these things cannot be explained to the common man in 5 minutes. I'm sorry to say, even in this half an hour discussion, we cannot discuss all the aspects of
Absolutely.
tax
No, we are not.
collection.
No, certainly
so
not.
when you are talking to the common man, you have to talk in a language that he
abolition of
understands.
income tax.
Okay. I think on that note we need to, and we're completely run out of time. There's no doubt, as Mr. Chari says, that there needs to be discussion. But the fact is that the whole proposal has come from the most important opposition party of this country, from its former president. So there needs to be a discussion about all these things. As Mr. Chari said, half an hour is not enough. But as Mr. Mohan and Shantanu says, at this stage of the proposal seems to be unviable. But when and how it could be viable, if the party and its proponents tell us, maybe there can be more discussion on this. Thanks to all my guests, Mohan Guruswamy, Shantanu Guha and Mr. Sheshadri Chari. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.